And if you've been born and raised here, like the guy we're going to talk to right now, boy, I tell you, he's a walking testimonial for where he grew up and where he went to high school and who he played for. One of the great athletes ever, ladies and gentlemen, at St. Pius High School. One of the best athletes I ever saw, period, in the whole city of Albuquerque. His name is Lonnie Hurley, and he's here with us today to help out a close friend of ours and to talk a little bit about where he's been and what he's done and who are the great influences in his life to help him get to that great successful story. Ladies and gentlemen, here is former St. Pius great Lonnie Hurley. He comes to the airways with great vigor. Lonnie, good morning to you, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great, Henry T. I greatly appreciate the introduction. I'm embarrassed to say the least, but I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about Coach Galassini. You had Coach on last week, and Jimmy Mitchum came on and talked about Coach. And anybody who's followed it understands Coach Galassini's hit a rough patch. He's been dealt a difficult deck of cards, but he's fighting the fight, and he's over in Health South right now, getting better every day. And I had mentioned to you that, a couple years ago, I started working on getting Coach Galassini into the St. Pius Hall of Honor. And essentially all that is, it's a Hall of Honor of people who've been at Pius, done well, and then gone on to be quite successful in business and in life, and have continued to contribute back to St. Pius. And Lincoln Galassini is definitely that. And we've started an endowment in Coach Galassini's name, and what all that means is there's about 30 endowments out at St. Pius High School, and to have an endowment in your name it takes $30,000. And I got thinking about it a couple years ago, and there's an endowment for the great Leon Palmisano, the first great coach ever at St. Pius. There's an endowment for Ray Giannini, the great football coach and AD, and an endowment for Coach Tristani, the great soccer coach at St. Pius, and of course an endowment for Coach Ron Tiber, the long-standing 50-year most famous St. Pius High School person ever, I believe, and I think pretty soon there'll be an endowment for the great Coach Mark Hilton, who coaches baseball out there now, but there isn't one for Coach Galassini. And I thought, we need to get organized and raise $30,000 and have an endowment in Coach's name. Well, then the darn guy goes on and gets sick like this scares me to death. And I've talked to a handful of people from 63, 64, 65, 66, 67 that played ball with Lincoln back at St. Pius. And they all said, you know what, Lonnie, we'll commit to $1,000 a year for 2 years. And I've committed, and some of the guys I played for in the 70s have committed. And I called Henry and said, Danny, any chance you let me get on the air and maybe beg some of your listeners who might have a soft spot for Coach Galassini and might donate a little money to the Lincoln Galassini Endowment, and that's what I'm doing today, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, you are much appreciated, period, in our community. Coach Lincoln certainly is. I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your connection, your life under the guidance of this man, Lincoln Galassini. What was it like? Take us to the beginning when you first met Coach Lincoln Galassini.
Well, I knew Coach Galassini early on when he coached my older brothers, John and Neil and Tim, and primarily football, but also my brother Neil in basketball. And Coach was just one of those guys that you could tell he understood the games, but boy, he was Mr. Fundamentals. And he was the first guy, and you talk about teachers and coaches in your life that have influenced you and sort of been your mentors, and that's what Coach really has been for me as a mentor, and a lot of my buddies too that played for him. And his number one rule was just the fundamentals. And I can so remember as a kid playing basketball in the 8th grade and going up to Pius the summer before 9th grade and doing these goofy, I thought they were goofy at the time, drills where you put a folding chair in front of you and you fake right, fake left, go right. Everybody just wants to shoot the ball and run up and down the court. And Coach Galassini was way smarter than that. He knew that even if you weren't the most talented guy, if you had solid fundamentals and you worked hard and you had good discipline, you could compete. and he built a basketball program there, and he won a state baseball championship as well, and he did it on fundamentals. And he was the first guy really, and I've used it in my business career. I'm not the most talented guy in my business, not the smartest guy by any means, but I work harder than the average guy, and work smarter. And Coach used to tell us, if you work hard, you work smart, you work as a team, things will work out. And more often than not, that's true. And that was the Link Galassini I know. And I over the years, that coach would tell me sometimes, you'd say, I don't care about the glory. I don't care about, prestige. He certainly wasn't making any money when he was coaching at St. Pius. He was probably making $15,000 a year. But what he cared about was the kids. And whether he was just your teacher in business law or typing or whatever he was teaching, or he was your coach in football or basketball or baseball, you just could tell he cared about you. And that's a legacy, I think, a lot of these coaches at Pius had. And all those ones I mentioned, Coach Palmisano, Giannini, Tristani, the great Bill Duffy, the Wally Sanchez's, they cared about the kids. And they cared about the families. And as a kid growing up, I was lucky. My mom and dad were great parents. And my dad's the second smartest guy I ever met. The only one smarter than him was my mom. But we were in good shape as a family. And Coach Giannini or Coach Galassini would call my mom and say, well, Mrs. Hurley, we got another kid that needs a place to stay for a while. And Mom would always say, sure. And we always seemed to have a kid or two just sort of living with us for a couple weeks or maybe a couple months or maybe 8 months. But Mom always took them in, always took care of them, always fed them, got them to school, probably paid their tuition. But, the coaches cared, and they would go that extra mile to help the kid out. It wasn't just about, winning state championships. It was about forming people to be decent people.
Wow. You talk so highly of your time at St. Pius with all these great leaders like Ray Giannini and Lincoln Galassini, and there have been some great ones in today, like you just mentioned, a great Mark Hilton and Damian Segura, and the list goes on of the quality people that educate there. It's not cliche, Lonnie, or pie in the sky. A St. Pius education is a strong foundation, a life builder. Would you concur with that?
Oh, 100%. I'm the president of the St. Pius Foundation Board this year. I still don't know how they suckered me into that baby, but I'm doing it, and I've learned a lot. And like last year, over 90. Well, in the last 10 years, over 98% of the kids from Pius go on to college. I mean, it is a college preparatory school. You get a phenomenal education, and there's some teachers out there that don't coach anything; they just teach. Like there's a Dr. Larry Sanchez in the math division. He's about as good a teacher as you would ever find in the state of New Mexico. And my daughter's a bright kid, and she was struggling in math. And she saw Mr. Sanchez a couple times, and then she ended up leaving a like at math. And if you can get a kid that's frustrated and hating it to turn around and like math, you're a great teacher. And Larry Sanchez is just the epitome of what St. Pius has to offer. And my daughter went down to New Mexico State on a Crimson Scholarship, graduated in 3.5 years. A couple of the schools she applied for masters wanted letters from professors. Well, she didn't know any of her professors in college, really. That's how college is nowadays. It's just sort of distant. And I had Dr. Sanchez write her a couple letters of recommendation. He was happy to do it. And she got accepted to all 7 programs she applied to. And that's what I think is the key to Pius is 98% go on to college. And last year, the kids got over $7 million in scholarship offers. Kimmy went to New Mexico State free on a Crimson Scholarship. My son Kurt went to New Mexico Military Institute for essentially free playing baseball. And what a great school that is. What a great education you get at New Mexico Military Institute. And, those are things that people don't really understand. I know that one of the things about these endowments that we try to raise, and then one of the reasons I want to do it for Coach Galassini is they all pay $30,000, and what does that do? Essentially, that's permanent money, and we invest it, and we try to make money on it, and the money we make goes to help pay tuition assistance for those kids that can't pay the full. It's up to about $10,000 now, and that $10,000 is a lot of bucks. But this year alone, we're going to try to give about $1.4 million in tuition assistance. That's unbelievable to me.
Wow.
I think, okay, so there's a lot of kids getting some tuition assistance. Probably over 30% of the kids at Pius get some kind of tuition assistance. And Lincoln Galassini endowment, a Ray Giannini endowment, a Ron Tiber endowment, that money is permanent, and the interest goes to help those kids get into Pius and get through Pius. And I got to tell you, if there's a family out there and they got a kid or 5 kids that would like to go to Pius, but they just think, oh, we can't ever afford it, they really ought to call Mr. Alan Jackson out at St. Pius High School and at least go sit down and talk to him, because Mr. Jackson's a magic man when it comes to numbers, and I got a good feeling he would come up with a way that they could get those kids into Pius. And Pius, quite honestly, when I was at Pius, we had about 1,000 in enrollment, and it was a family. I still look at it as a big extended family at St. Pius High School, and our numbers are down. We're down to about 750 kids, and the sweet spot, Henry Reilly, for St. Pius High School, probably about 900 kids. So if we could get out there and find 150 more kids that could be eligible to go to Pius, boy, what a turnaround that would be. And one of the things, I've gotten to know, being on the foundation board, I've gotten to know Steve Ross, the advancement director, and his assistant Becky Montoya Ballou very well. And you could call them, if somebody wants to donate money to the Galassini endowment or any endowment, really, they could just call out at Pius. The number's 831-8423, and they could help out. And one of my big reasons for hounding you this week was to help me out with Lincoln Galassini endowment, and I can't think of a more deserving guy. Coach Galassini graduated from St. Pius in '65. He played basketball and baseball. I think he was one of the first all-state kids ever from St. Pius High School. And then he coached there in the 70s and 80s, and then he went on to Lafarge and became a very successful businessman. And heck, my wife and I stopped by and visited him late the other night. And he's got his computer open sitting there at Health South, and he's trying to sell concrete. And the poor guy, he can't feel his legs, and he's laying in that poor hospital room, and they're taking great care of him there. Health South is a phenomenal place. But he's hurting, and he's sitting there, and he smiles, and he says, 1 yard at a time. If you need a yard of concrete, call Andy Graham. He'll get it for you.
He's amazing.
It's incredible, And then we talk about Pius, and Pius has the big X that they use, that yellow X, and that everybody knows. That's the symbol of St. Pius. And Coach and Coach Tiber were actually talking about it, and they said, we should use that X as our symbol, but right through the middle of it, we should impose "Be Proud." And I took that to the foundation board, and most people agree that's not a bad idea, because even though Pius moved after 26, 7 years, whatever it was, there in Louisiana, and we're out on the west side, we're still sort of a community. And I talked to Coach Galassini's son, Joel. What a great kid he is. And he lives down in Texas now. He's a successful businessman himself. And we were talking about it. And he said, Lonnie, this has just been unbelievable. He didn't go to Pius, unfortunately. He chose to go somewhere else, which is understood. But he said, since his dad's been there at Health South, there have been 250 people come through. Even somebody signed in as the Pope. And he said, everybody's coming to see Coach Galassini. And it's sort of a family, a community that really takes care of their people. And quite honestly, I don't know, Henry, but I'm thinking a lot of these other schools that have great coaches, great teachers, if one of their teachers was stricken with this hard thing that Coach has been hit with, I don't know that they'd have this big community come through and support. But, we got people lined up ready to do what we have to do to Coach's house or whatever Coach needs to get him up, get him walking again, get him living a life again. And, there's been no waning. He's been down since Easter Sunday. and the people are still flowing through, coming in saying, Coach, what do you need? What can we do for you? You let us know. And this endowment would just be a piece of that honor. And like I said, we're trying to get him into the Hall of Honor, and it's a process. Maybe this year he'll go in, maybe not, but I'm certainly hoping for it. And no better guy. I mean, he's influenced so many people that have gone through St. Pius. Me being one of them, and my three older brothers, my sister Peggy. I mean, we've all been influenced in some way by Coach Galassini. All my best buddies, I had 5 guys in my wedding. I married my high school sweetheart, Barbara, and she loves Coach as well. And all my buddies love Coach, and they've all been successful. And we've talked about, what can we do for Coach Galassini? And this is one of those things we can do to help him out.
You know, when I think of Lincoln Galassini, I think of my neighbor growing up back in the day who always wanted to go play ball. And what a fierce competitor and what an outstanding athlete he always was. And one of the funniest people I've ever been around. His sense of humor is second to none. He cracks me up, Lonnie Hurley. And I know he's tough enough to get in your face to make you a better athlete, to make you a better person, and all of that. But what a funny man. How often does he crack you up with his great wit?
Every time I see him, and he's a master of one-liners. Some of them probably not necessarily appropriate for family radio, but little things like my buddy Mike McCollum and I, who was my best buddy all the way from high school. We're still best buddies after all these years. We took Coach golfing about 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, and he just had us rolling the whole time, and he was in great shape. That's the thing, Henry, that just scares you to death sometimes. Coach was great. He was wonderful that day. And then a month later, he's stricken with the disaster, and we kind of just try to get him back. But he is so funny, and just the one-liners is one of my favorite ones, and one of the ones I'll always remember. One of the first ones when I was playing ball for him, just matter-of-factly, he'd say, when in doubt, when on the basketball court, he'd say, when in doubt, shoot. And it was sort of like, what? And he'd say, a bad shot is better than a bad pass any day. And in reality, it's true, in life, it's better to take a bad shot and miss than not,
He cracks me up. His impeccable, great character, his leadership. He has thousands of friends. His ability in coaching is unique. His unbelievable positive attitude, even going through the duress that he's living right now. He's got the most positive attitude, quite possibly, I have ever seen, Lonnie Hurley. What are your thoughts on the above?
I would second that 100%. I've been trying to see him every day I can, and I go in and there's no poor pitiful me going on at all with Coach Galassini. He's essentially saying, okay, got to get out of this bed. I got to get my legs working again. I got to get home. I got to get back to work. I mean, he's a workaholic, and I got to get back to teaching people things. Like I said, he loves those fundamentals. So he's on plays his pad in his office about the triple weave and how this team could have done better with that. And he just never stops, and he's always talking team. And that was one of the things we were talking about. In 1977, I played on the state runner-up basketball team, and we had quite a good team. We weren't, but we talked about it. There were no superstars in that team. Every night, somebody else, was the leader. One night, Anthony Gurley would put in 24, and the next night, Leslie Smithson would drain 26, and every night somebody different would be the big scorer, but cumulative, the team would just play like a team, and that was one of the things that he built a phenomenal program out there, and it wasn't just on superstars, one kid leading the way, because Coach and I've talked about it, and everybody wants to shoot the ball, but you gotta have one or two guys that like shooting the ball, and then a bunch of role players that like rebounding, bringing the ball down the court, getting the ball to those guys who can put it in the hole. And Coach was very good at teaching people, as a team, we're going to win this thing. As individuals, we're not going to go anywhere. And that is so true. But that positive attitude, too, is we're going to have a lot more fun if we're winning. and this is what we got to do to win. So it's your guys' call. And you know, I see him over there in that Health South bed. It breaks my heart some days, but I got faith that he's gonna just keep fighting, and we're gonna get him up and out of there.
Yeah, amen. You know, I went there to lift him up, and I left there being lifted up. How about that?
Right. Yeah. He has that effect on people, and you know, just the success that comes with that positive attitude. In '77, he was the coach of the year for basketball in the state that year in our division. And then he went on to be coach of the year in baseball. He won the state baseball championship, which, by the way, I understand my buddy Jerry Lujan might do the color for you Saturday. Pius has a big doubleheader against the academy, and Jerry's coached a lot of those kids on both teams, and I think that's going to be great. And Jerry, you know, little things like my kids went to Pius, they did well. My son played baseball and did well. It was All-State. My daughter played softball, did very well, and they both got good grades. But Jerry's boys playing baseball now. Jared, and he got the game-winning hit, the 2 RBIs against the academy at their game out at Pius a couple weeks ago. And I thought, man, how you can't write these kinds of stories. You know, I hear Jerry Lujan, an All-State baseball player in '77. Now his son's playing for Mark Gilpin out there, and they're fighting for the district championship, and bases loaded, and his son gets up and ropes a single, and it's just like this. It's just true. And I guarantee if you talk to Jerry on Saturday, he'll tell you Coach Galassini's positive attitude had an effect on him. They won the state championship and played as a team, and you know, that you learn lessons from that stuff.
My goodness. Well, as we reiterate, Coach Galassini is at Health South, ladies and gentlemen, and he's up against the fight of his life, literally. And he has so many friends coming through there. I go through there with a recorder thinking, gee, this is the who's who of sports in the great history of the state of New Mexico, because the list is long, and every time I'm there, more people come in. I'm leaving here, they're coming, walking down the hall to see Coach Lincoln. How do you think all of that reaction from all of those who love and respect Coach Galassini, how do you think he's received all that friendship in this time that he needs them most?
Oh, I think it's vitally important right now, especially as the days are getting a little longer in the tooth, Henry. You know, he's had such positive attitude, but I do think that people coming in and just sharing, you know, stories and showing them how much they appreciate all he's done for them over the years really's got to help his spirit, because he does have a battle coming up. He got a bad disease and you know, he's fighting a good fight. But boy, I tell you, if you know Link Galassini and you got a soft spot in your heart for him, I'd ask you to go out to Health South and tell him, hey, Coach, we love you. We're pulling for you, and we're saying your prayers. I'm certainly no holy roller, Henry. I go to church once a week, whether I need to or not still, but that's primarily because Barbara makes me. But I say my prayers every night for Coach Galassini, and even if you're not the most religious person, a little prayer, you know, we get a million prayers going, you never know, might help Coach out.
You bet, you bet. Now, reiterate the endowment effort that you and your friends are going through right now to put the endowment in place for Lincoln Galassini.
Right, I appreciate it. And again, all that endowment does is it helps pay for kids who can't afford St. Pius to be able to go to St. Pius. And there's individuals like Mike McCollum and John Cordova, my brother-in-law, who played football and then basketball and was a great track star, still holds the shot put record at Pius. And then Don Powers, a great player back in the 60s, and a handful of other people have you know, promised to give a couple $1,000 over the next couple of years to get this started. And what we're doing is trying to raise $30,000 for the Lincoln Galassini Endowment, and that way he can be right there with Coach Giannini, Coach Diver, Coach Palmazzano, Coach Tristani, and hopefully someday Coach Hilton, and then, you know, regardless of how things go with Coach Galassini here, there'll be a legacy. And that, to me, is what I'm working on, is to let people know, hey, there's a guy, Lincoln Galassini, and he loved St. Pius like nobody else loves St. Pius. and he would have given you the shirt off his back. He would have taken you into his home. He would have driven you to New Jersey if you needed a ride to New Jersey. And he was the man about men. And he would teach you, there's right and wrong, and doing the right thing is what you always do. And an endowment would be perfect for him.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lonnie Hurley, a former great athlete at St. Pius High School, who played a lot for Coach Lincoln Galassini. And when he talks to you, it comes straight from the heart. There's no doubt about it. I can think of you were a very combative, very quick, very agile athlete. I mean, there's no substitute for quickness and speed, and you had both. And you had a heart filled with desire, and I'm sure Mom and Dad had something to do with that. Tell us about their leadership for you as you were growing up, Lonnie. How good a parenthood did you experience to make your childhood so strong?
Oh, heck, Kenny, I appreciate the opportunity. And again, I'm sorry if I'm rambling on, but I'm passionate about Pius, and I'm passionate about Coach Galassini. And I'm also passionate about my family. There's nothing more important than family. That's where it all starts. And Mom and Dad, like I said, they're the two smartest individuals I've ever met. And my dad, worked hard and was just a brilliant man. And he would take care of people that needed help. And when my dad retired from his orthopedic practice, he had money owed to him that I couldn't believe. But he was sort of like, you know what? I would never send anybody to collections. That just wasn't in his heart. And he was just an honest, decent man. He is an honest, decent man. He's going to be 85 years old next week. And then my mom unfortunately passed away about 4 years ago, but she was just the greatest lady, and that she took care of people. And I remember when I started as a pharmaceutical sales rep, a couple of the people down at St. Joe's Hospital called me in their office, and they said, hey, let me tell you something. If anybody wants to get anything done at St. Joe's Hospital, they talk to Noby Hurley, and she gets it done. And I was like, okay, yes, sir, I'm glad to know that. And they said, and if you do anything to embarrass your mother, we're going to put the whooping on you. So trust me, I tried to make sure I never did. But like I said, we always had people staying with us, and Mom would take people in and give them an incredible Christmas experience or Easter experience or 4th of July experience, and let them live with us for as long as they needed to live with us. And she just understood, that we were fortunate, and there was a lot of love. I mean, there's my 3 older brothers. My brother John's a retired teacher in Grand Junction. My brother Neil's a great real estate appraiser. My sister Peggy, probably the best athlete out of the whole family. She threw the ball better than any of us, shot the ball better, probably beat us all in free throw contest. Then my brother Tim's a high-risk obstetrician, saving mothers and their sick babies. And we've all done well. And I got to admit, we owe it to our parents, and primarily that's where it started, and then a great education at Our Lady of Fatima and the great Falcons, and then St. Pius High School, and it is an extended family, and we all still have great friends from St. Pius, but it all started with Mom and Dad, and again, that the lessons are right, wrong, and we all goofed up here and there, and we would pay the price, but we'd get back on our feet and learn from the mistakes and try not to make them again.
Lonnie, give us that special moment before we go. As an athlete, as a student athlete, if you will, at St. Pius High School back in the day, give us one or two of those moments you still think about driving down the highway, and you take yourself right back into the game. Give us one of those great athletic moments of Lonnie Hurley.
Okay, there's 1,000 of them, Henry, but if I got to pick one, when I was a senior on the basketball team, like I said, we had 12 kids. Everybody contributed, and it was a team. And we were playing Rio Grande High School, and they had the best player in the state, I think, at the time on their team. I think Monty Gresham, I believe his name was. And my best buddy, Mike McCollum, was on the team, and Mike didn't get to play a whole lot, but, he got to play, and we're going to win the game, and the fans started cheering in the Pius gym, Mock, 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 and that was his nickname, Mock. And the coach, coach is such a great guy. He put Mock in the game. The first time down the court, I penetrated, threw it out to Muck in the deep corner. Muck pump faked, and Monty Grissom went flying by. Then Muck put it up, swish, and the stands erupted. And it still to this day brings a smile to my face, and it just epitomizes the family of Pius, and just how special it can be.
Wow. And as we close up here, Coach Galassini motivated you, had fun with you, but did he ever get in Lonnie Hurley's face?
I'm sorry you asked that question. Coach. Coach. One practice coach was particularly difficult on me, and I won't get into details, but he eventually was making an example for the rest of the team at my expense. But at the point in time, I didn't quite understand it. I felt sorry for myself. I got home. I told my mom. She said, "You're the one that wanted to play basketball. If you don't like it, quit." and now, soon after high school, I realized what Coach was doing, and I was the kid he could get after, and I'd be able to handle it, and everybody else would stand there wide-eyed, and shocked, a little taken aback, but that's okay. And we all learned a lesson from that, and I certainly did. I don't know if Coach regrets it or not, but he needed to do it, and it made the team a better team. And like I said, we went on to be the runners-up in the state basketball championship, lost to the great Henry Sanchez at Bernalillo by 1 point, and boy, if anything I could change in my St. Pius career, it'd be that one darn point. But I guess that's not going to happen. So we just kind of hope Pius keeps winning as many state championships as they can in every sport. I read the paper all the time, Henry, and I just love reading about Pius kids doing well, whether it's the science fair or the speech competition or getting scholarships here, there, and everywhere. And then, of course, the sports, the softball team, the baseball team, the soccer team, the golf team. I just love seeing Pius do well, and the kids at Pius do well.
Wow. What a story, ladies and gentlemen. The way that Lonnie Hurley described it all today for his close friend, Lincoln Galassini, who is literally this moment in his room and probably out in therapy this morning at Hell South. Go by and say hello to him, give him a phone call, drop him a card, get in contact with Coach Galassini. There's a man right there who has touched thousands of people and is one of the primary reasons those people are success stories today, like Lonnie Hurley, who is before you at this moment.